Yesterday, we saw this U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle giving evidence. Now, she definitely admitted failures.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades, and I am keeping him and his family in my thoughts. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
Lots of criticism there of Kimberly Cheatle. There she was admitting failures. But actually, the US Representative Nancy Mace got rather heated in her questioning of Kimberly Cheatle with some expletives.
Several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political, yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's... Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of today. You're just being completely dishonest.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
That is full of... Wow, that's pretty eviscerating, actually. Joining us now is Michael Trujillo, who is a Democratic strategist, has run over 100 campaigns for a number of characters over in the United States. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Shall we... I don't know where to start. There's so much news coming out from the United States. Let's start with Kimberly Cheatle, though, because obviously she gave evidence, well, sort of evidence. I mean, she pretty much tried to talk her way around any question that was given to her. And as we saw there, Nancy Mace berating her and calling it a load of... What do you make of it?
Well, you know, I think both Democrats and Republicans were going after the Secret Service director yesterday. It was a bipartisan slap in her face. I think Americans should be disgusted with the amount of security that was there that day. No one wants to see any president or former president be attacked in that way. So, you know, I think she got what she deserved, and both Democrats and Republicans were going after her.
Well, there's so many questions there. How did this guy, Thomas Crooks, get onto that flat roof? Why wasn't it scoped? How was it in the line of vision? Also, we know that many members of the public actually alerted the police, the security service, some 2 minutes before that assassination attempt. So failures, repeated failures of communication, and then blame, saying, well, we don't actually enforce the area outside that venue. This was down to the local police. I mean, it's just an unmitigated disaster.
Absolutely. You know, if the buck should really stop with her, and if this was the biggest, you know, disaster that's happened in decades, once this investigation is over, she should inform the Congress and the president that she's stepping down. That's the only right thing to do, and that's the only way to make sure Americans in the world have trust in our Secret Service when it comes to protecting our dignitaries.
Well, she also said the roof had been identified as a potential vulnerability days before the rally. Well, if you'd identified it, why wasn't anyone there?
I think that's what this investigation led by the FBI is trying to answer. You know, look, I've worked on presidential campaigns. I've worked side by side with Secret Service agents. These men and women take their job seriously. They don't play around. And, you know, I think if there was a security lapse, we got to find out who's at fault and make sure they get fired.
I mean, she also denied that resources had been removed away from Trump. She said the level of security provided for the former president increased well before the campaign. She also said our mission is not political. She's desperately trying to deflect it. It's literally a matter of life and death. You're not kidding. Well, Donald Trump was speaking to Fox News, and he questioned the intelligence on the day of the shooting.
It just shouldn't have been when you have essentially a flat, open roof like that, and it's direct to the target with absolutely nothing in its way. How can somebody be up there? And he was up there for a long period of time because they have tape of him moving all over the place. And then they see him and they don't report him. Who was the policeman or I guess it was local police, who looked at him saw him standing with a gun. I think the guy saw him, and this guy dropped off the roof. And I don't blame him for that. What I do blame him for is why isn't he calling everybody, screaming and saying, there's a guy with a gun up there? What did he do when he dropped off the roof? Did he just go away and say, like, nothing? That's a big, that's a big factor. Who was he? And why did he do that? Why didn't we know about that? Because I would have, oftentimes, based on weather and based on other things, I'd say, sir, would you wait 10 minutes before you go out, please? We never had a case like this. But certainly if they said, would you wait 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes because we have a possible problem, unlikely but possible, I wish somebody would have done that, because Corey would be alive and 2 people that were seriously hurt would not be hurt. And we wouldn't have had all of the things that we've gone through over the last period of time.
Let's move on, though, shall we, and talk about the front pages here. I mean, the papers have rather hedged their bets overnight because, obviously, the news is updating the whole time. The Daily Telegraph, coronation for Harris as rivals step aside. And this one, the Times, donor dollars pour in as Harris promises victory, because Kamala Harris has now secured enough delegates to earn the Democratic Party's nomination as a presidential candidate. 2,214 delegates. Over the last few days, I've been talking about the runners and riders, who could possibly stand, who could be against Trump. It's now going to be Harris.
Yeah, in the last 36 hours, we've seen the Democratic Party coalesce around Harris. And that's not a surprise. When delegates were being selected, they were Joe Biden and Kamala Harris delegates. So her getting the nomination, or being the presumptive nominee, is not a shocker. I think she did it much faster than most folks probably thought. It's now going to be reported probably by tomorrow morning that she's raised $100 million into her account online, which again is another historic amount of money in 2 days in a row of being able to break records. I think the momentum in terms of consolidating our party around her and getting grassroots donors to give is solidly in her camp. And I think Democrats nationally are really excited.
I mean, just looking at the mass, the numbers, the amount of money coming in is off the scale, actually. She announced she's, as you said, it's going to be $100 million, but it's $81 million at the moment, as far as I know. But also, there was a Democratic fundraising committee bringing in another $150 million. This is a cool, what, $230 million already.
Yeah, and I would not be shocked by this time, at least when it's the morning in the United States. I think that number is going to be well over 300, potentially in the mid 300s. By the end of the week, we might see $500 million on Kamala Harris's side of the ledger, whether it's a super PAC or within her campaign committee.
I mean, there's a brilliant article, I have to say, by Freddie Gray, a friend of this programme, in The Spectator, saying there are 2 things that are important in American politics. This is what Mark Hanna said. The first is money, and I can't remember what the second one is. It's about cash, isn't it, this?
Well, because it's expensive to get our advertisements out, and the amount of money we have to pay for them, the swing states where we have hundreds of staffers going door to door, knocking on voters' houses to remind them to vote, to convince them to be, if they're undecided, to be for Kamala Harris. It's an expensive endeavor. And, it's what we like to call, it's a $2 billion startup, and then it disappears right after the election.
Well, you talk about the swing states, and obviously they're now thinking, well, who's the running mate going to be? Now, obviously, they're now thinking, well, maybe she needs a white man to be the running mate, someone who would appeal to the working class demographic, to the Rust Belt. We talked about that before. Is this tokenistic politics?
Welcome to America. When Ronald Reagan chose George Bush, it was because he needed foreign policy heft. When Bush chose, or when Clinton chose Gore, it was because we wanted to win Tennessee, since he was the former senator there. When Bush chose Cheney, it was because we needed gravitas and even more foreign policy experience. When Barack Obama chose Joe Biden, it was because of his foreign policy experience. So every vice president selection in American modern politics has always been a token position, whether it's about shoring up a demographic or a specific geography in terms of a state, or shoring up a policy that the current candidate has weakened. So this is not new in American politics. I just think we're now realizing or more of the public's realizing as to how vice presidents are chosen historically.
Well, sure, and they're looking for a male candidate from the Midwest to essentially, as I said, to go after those blue-collar voters. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all really important. Now, just in terms of Kamala Harris, there's been a lot of criticism that she's just not up to the job, that she's not very good at public speaking. Many people and commentators are saying she laughs like a hyena. We've also got Nigel Farage over here, this side of the pond. I'm sure you know who he is, friend of Donald Trump. He said it would be absolutely potty for Americans to vote for Kamala Harris on the basis that she would be the first female president of the United States. Actually, it's quite a nice tie-in to Kimberly Cheatle here, because she was we believe she was a DEI appointment, diversity, equality and inclusion. I mean, how much of this is actually, as I say, the optics of having the first female, black or mixed race president?
Well, you know, in 2008, America voted for a guy whose middle name was Hussein. In 2016, Hillary Clinton got 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. So Americans have shown that they're willing to vote for anyone that they believe will pursue a positive policy for our country.
Is she the best? Is she the best that the Democrats have got?
You know, she was the most important understudy in American politics, being our vice president the last 3.5 years. She's a former U.S. senator. She's a former attorney general here in the state of California, which means she was our top cop. Before that, she was a prosecutor in San Francisco as a district attorney. You know, she has proven herself over and over again, winning these elections by no small margins, because folks trust her. And so as she's moved up the ladder, she's shown that she's up to the job, and this is the next test for her.
Are you going to beat Trump?
I believe we're going to beat Trump. I believe the Trumpism and Donald Trump will go off under the sunset, and we'll hopefully never have to hear from that family again.
And by what margin will you win?
It's going to be close. It's probably going to be by tens of thousands of ballots in the crucial swing states that you were mentioning: Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. These are all going to be critical states that we need to win to ensure Kamala Harris is our president.
It really is absolutely fascinating. Michael, thank you for your time. That's Michael Trujillo there, Democratic strategist.